like Scott said, met him in beginning of 2018, so it's been over 6 years since I got to meet Scott. And as all of you know, Scott is a very persistent fellow. I get a call or a text from him at least once a month, maybe a little bit more than that. Just a phenomenal guy to have in your corner. Always love just getting on the phone, catching up with Scott. And when he reached out to me, telling me, dreaming about this camp and event in particular a couple of years ago, I knew that I definitely wanted to be a part of it because grassroots triathlon is, it is the core of our sport. We as Paralympians, we all started at the grassroots level. Many of us at either camps or clinics or something similar, but not exactly like this one. And so you guys here, we have brought together all of you. I think there's about 20 athletes here of all different abilities, and it's really just amazing what Scott has been able to pull together here. Because this adaptive triathlon community has indeed grown. We were talking earlier tonight. The sport of para-triathlon it's very, very young. Yes, we've had athletes with disabilities, do triathlon since the 1980s, but really it hasn't been a sanctioned sport for all that very long. I mean, some of you, I think most of us here, it was, para-triathlon and adaptive triathlon has only really been sanctioned since, what about like 2009, 2010 in the US or something along those lines. So it's still a brand new sport. So you guys are all here, we're still in the baby stages of this sport, which is really amazing, really great. And I've been very fortunate to be able to call every single one of you a family member. But to not get too long-winded and too sentimental, for those of you that don't know my entire story, I'll give you a very brief summary of it. I did lose my sight as a little kid. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 10 months old, and I went through about 5 or 6 years of pretty aggressive cancer treatment until the treatment just did so much damage to my eyes that my left eye had to be removed just after I turned 5, and my right just after just before I turned 7. And as many of you in this room know, when you lose something, it hurts. And as a kid, I wanted my doctors to make me better so I could go outside and play with my friends. And well, they made me better, and then I didn't really know how to go outside and play with my friends. And I was very lucky, very, very fortunate that my parents got connected in our community, and networks helped to connect us with a person that was totally blind, and he happened to be a big-time adventure athlete and was starting to make waves and make a name for himself. And so he came down to Jacksonville, Florida, where I was living at the time, and I was 7, 8-year-old kid that never met an adult blind person before. And this guy walks in with a big old deep-chested German Shepherd, and he tells me that he climbs rock faces, jumps out of airplanes, and skis down mountains, and runs 26 miles. They call that a marathon. And I say, "You're lying. I mean, come on, man, you're not blind." And he's like, "I swear I am." And he told me that if I if I had the right attitude and I had the right mindset, I could also live a full and adventurous life. I just had to be willing and able to say yes and ask myself, what is it that I can do? And I had to be willing to try things a little differently. And so he challenged me to try out rock climbing, and so I did. I went on and I started dabbling in rock climbing at a local rock climbing gym, and well, I loved it so much that my parents made my sisters do it because I was just spending all the time at the climbing gym. And then my sisters were loving it so much that my parents decided, well, the kids are all gonna do competitive rock climbing. So we started traveling as a family all around the state of Florida, competing in rock climbing competitions. And this was in the days, before the International Federation of Sport Climbing sanctioned paraclimbing. So I was climbing against other kids that could see, and it was a challenge and a fight with a lot of judges and officials and those higher ups at USA Climbing to allow me to compete. And it was a challenge, but it was also so much fun to be on the ground level of an emerging sport. And well, eventually, my competitive climbing days ran their course, and I went on to focus more on things like school and homework and all that kind of stuff. But kept up my athletic pursuits, sandwiched in around my studies. Wrestled all throughout high school and a little bit into college, and I made it through college. And I was a very arrogant 21-year-old when I graduated from college. I thought I was just the hottest thing in the world. By the time I was 21 years old, I had already been on national television a couple of times. I had traveled around the world doing climbing, hiking, and doing some pretty cool adventurous stuff. But my head was way too big for my britches, and I thought I deserved more than I did, and so I started applying for every job that was CEO and above. So, we just heard from Vic there. So I was applying for levels of jobs that Vic is holds, and as a 21-year-old, I had no business applying for those jobs, and so I did what I started climbing down the corporate ladder. And then I eventually fell off the bottom rung of the ladder. I hit the ground, started digging a hole, dug it a little deeper, thought I might make it to China. Didn't quite make it all the way there. And eventually I learned that, what Eric, my mentor, had told me still applied to me as at that time, 22-year-old. I had to think differently. I had to be willing to try some things that scared me. I had to be willing to work my way up from the bottom, or below the bottom, as it were, at that point. And so for me, physical activity had always been my saving grace. And when I decided to get my body back in shape, I had probably put on 25 or 30 pounds after college. I was a big boy, and I was the furthest thing from an athlete. But I decided that I wanted to start running, and I jumped on our old friend Google and asked it, how does a blind guy run? And learned that I needed this thing called a guide. So found a website. It was a precursor to United in Stride. A couple of our VI friends in here are familiar with that website. It was a precursor to United in Stride, and it was a website that I could plug in my zip code where I was living, and it would spit out names of people that lived in my area that were open to guiding a crazy blind guy for a run. And so I plugged it in, 2 names got spit out. I emailed them both. One of them responded, and I said, well, beggars can't be choosers. So I went and met with this guy, and we did a little shuffled run. I'd say run loosely. It was, you know, I was not a runner, you guys. Like I said, I was the furthest thing from an athlete. And after a few, times we ran together, he said, why do you want to be a runner? Running is dumb. You should do triathlon. And I was silly enough to believe him. And so my journey into triathlon began. And at the time, there wasn't this community of adaptive and para triathletes. There were a handful, and I'd reach out to them, but the community was not as open back then. At least the athletes that I reached out to, I got a lot of vague answers, and just make it up, you'll figure it out. And so we did. My buddy and I, we just made it up. We kind of figured our way through this sport of triathlon. And I can understand where everyone in this room is, whether you never swam or sat on a bike or run at all, because I've been there. And I did my first triathlon in 2015, and it was a nightmare. I had no idea what I was doing. My buddy and I, we somehow flailed our way through the swim, ground our way through the bike on my big clunker of a tandem, and got to the run, and I shuffled and stumbled my way to the finish line. But something really cool and unique happened, and that was every single person that I passed or passed me was super supportive. And it was not a bunch of people, elite athletes. It was people of all shapes and sizes doing something that they really, really enjoyed. And everyone supported each other. And that really stuck with me. And I loved putting this puzzle of swimming, cycling, and running together. And I decided, well, even though I really didn't feel like I belonged in this sport, I would try another one and try another one and go a little bit longer and go a little bit longer. And eventually I did get into, I dabbled in Ironman, distance racing, and did my first Ironman in 2016. Florida boy decided to go all the way to Boulder, Colorado to do an Ironman at altitude. Struggled through that one. Crawled, I got through the swim, got through the bike, and was so jazzed up on the run. I ran the first mile, walked the next 25, jogged to the finish line for the finishing chute. And at the end of that race, I said, my triathlon career is over. I'm never doing another one. And I think the next day I signed up for Ironman Arizona in 2017 because that's the way triathlon works. And I just decided that I wanted to keep pursuing this sport. I had zero intention of going to the Paralympic Games. I'm going to tell you that now. I had zero intention of going to the Paralympic Games. I did not think that I was a good enough athlete. I did not think that I was an elite athlete. And so over the course of a year and a half or so, I just trained. I trained really hard. I thought I trained really hard at the time, but I did improve. I swam, I biked, and I ran a lot. And at the end of 2017, I did Ironman Arizona, and I knocked nearly 4 hours off my previous Ironman time. And I thought, wow, that's pretty darn cool. So I was able to creep under the 12-hour barrier for Ironman, and I said, well, if I can knock 4 hours off an Ironman time, I wonder what I could do if I actually hired a coach. And so I started exploring, this idea of being coached, and so I went to various camps. That's where I met Scott, and met other people that would have a huge influence on my triathlon journey. I did find a coach, hired her, and she kicked my butt for a whole year. And we set a goal of, at the time, no totally blind athlete had gone under 11 hours for an Ironman. So we set a lofty, ambitious goal of going under 11 hours for an Ironman. And so I went back to Ironman Arizona and ground my way through. Had quite a few challenges along the road in 2018. Dabbled in a little bit more running, dabbled in some trail running, did a little bike race from California to Maryland, where I broke my elbow, all that kind of fun stuff. And then, got to the end of 2018 and somehow squeaked under the 11-hour barrier for Ironman Arizona. I crossed the finish line of that race, and I thought, well, what's next? I could keep getting faster at Ironman, or I could try something else. And at that time, it was announced that male visually impaired triathlon would be in the Tokyo Paralympic Games. And I didn't think of myself as a sprint triathlete. I had done some sprint triathlons in the past, and I had been peer pressured into signing up for the Continental Championships earlier in 2018, and got fourth at that race. It was just a few seconds off the podium, but I didn't think I was that caliber of athlete. We had guys that were running 16, 17-minute 5Ks, and I was only a 22, 23-minute 5K guy at the time. But a coach at a talent ID camp in Colorado Springs pulled me aside and said, hey, you may not be fast right now, but look how far you've come. And I think you can go even further if you really work at it. And they're opening up spots here at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center, and I would encourage you to apply for one. So I threw my hat in the ring, got on a phone call with the director of Paralympic programming at the time, and the resident team head coach, this guy named Derek Williamson. Came on with his good old South Carolina drawl, and he was living. He had just moved from Texas. He had just moved from Austin to Colorado Springs, and he was like, I reckon I can make you faster. And I said, put your money where your mouth is, big boy. And well, I moved to Colorado Springs at the beginning of 2019, and I learned what it was. And the first day that I got onto campus, my coach Derek Williamson sat me down, and he told me one thing. He said the difference between beginning triathletes and the professional or elite level triathletes is not much. We all do the same swim, bike, and run. The difference is that the ones that make it to tip-top levels, they do simple really well. We overcomplicate the sport of triathlon. And it's very easy to do. And a lot of the times we overcomplicate life. And we, on the USA Paratriathlon resident team, we embraced that idea of doing simple well. And one day we walked into the pool. We were getting ready to do a swim workout, and the USA Para Swim team had left their whiteboard up, and there was this big long list of values. It was probably like 30 or 40 team values. And we looked at that, and I don't know if it was my teammate Haley or my teammate Howie or someone just said, "That's too long, I'm not gonna read that." And someone said TLDR. And so we took those letters, TLDR, and we formed our own team values. And we decided that our number one, team value, apart from doing simple well, was going to be tough love. We were going to be truthful to each other, and we're going to be truthful to ourselves, number one and first and foremost. And we were going to recognize that in our world of para sport and adaptive sport in general, there are going to be things far outside of our control. But there's a lot of stuff in our control. And so we had to give each other some tough love. The second letter, L, we decided that was going to stand for live, laugh, and love. Because we had to live our lives fully and completely as we possibly could. And because we know that para and adaptive really it's not fair, life isn't fair, we had to learn to laugh at it. We had to learn to laugh at all the little moments. We had to learn to laugh at every single thing. We had to learn to laugh at ourselves, because this sport, you guys, I will never sugarcoat it for you. I will tell you the truth all the time. Triathlon's hard. You guys have experienced that over the last couple days. It's hard. It's a lot of fun, but it's hard. Swimming, biking, running, you got all this gear, you got all of us coaches telling you this or that, all that kind of stuff. But we had to understand that we just had to laugh about it. Because you have to, if you let it overwhelm you, it becomes too much. And then we had to know that love is a bedrock of our team, and is a bedrock of our team, and it's a bedrock of this world of para and adaptive sport in general. The D was a little more colorful in the TLDR. We decided, and please apologize, and excuse my French, but we basically said, don't be a dick. That means be kind, be courteous, and be respectful to each other. We don't always have to like each other. We don't have to like some decisions that we make, but we're going to respect each other every single day. And the R, we decided that it was gonna, again, a little more colorful. We're kind of a colorful bunch of characters. We decided that was gonna stand for really try hard not to suck. And basically all that meant was, I don't care if you're the fastest. I don't care if you're the strongest or the best looking or the worst looking or anything like that. But if you gave it everything you had, 100%, you earned our respect and our trust. And that didn't just mean in swimming, biking, and running. We meant really try hard to be a good person. Be inclusive. Have your arms open wide to welcome everybody into this community. Because, like Scott said, this is a family. It is not a community. We do not just accept anybody into this community. You gotta be willing to tell the truth. You gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta be willing to work hard. Tomorrow, some of you guys are going to do your first ever triathlon. Some of you are going to be doing your second or your 10th or 20th, just like Joel said. I'm not racing tomorrow. I don't think I've quite done 100 triathlons yet, Joel, but thank you for that. Thank you for thinking I have.
You'll get there.
I will eventually. But really focus tomorrow on knowing that this weekend has been historic. I did not have this when I started the sport, and I wish I had, because I would have gotten into this community so much quicker. And it's a special group of people that we have here. Some of you tomorrow will cross the finish line and say, I'm never doing that silly triathlon thing ever again. And I guarantee Monday morning you're going to be looking for a race to sign up, just like I did. Because this sport sucks you in. The people suck you in, and really I just kept on continuing to race because I just wanted to hang out with my friends. And I just kept working hard and getting faster, and well, eventually I looked up and I was fast enough that I was battling out and beating some of the best guys in the world. And I somehow made it to the Paralympic Games in Tokyo. And missed out on a medal by a few seconds in Tokyo, but redoubled my efforts and committed to going to Paris, and really worked hard at it. But the reason we call this adaptive triathlon, it's not because you all are, we all have disabilities and all that. It's because the sport of triathlon requires adaptation, no matter who you are or what your ability level is. And we really experienced that in Paris this year. So it was a couple of days before the race was supposed to take place, and I send out an email newsletter every once in a while. And well, I wrote in one of my last email newsletters before the Paralympic Games, explaining some of the concerns around the water quality in the Seine, and how World Triathlon and the International Paralympic Committee had decided to move our race to September 1st instead of September 2nd. And I wrote in there that triathlon is all about being able to adapt, no matter what level you're at. Well, and I didn't know that one of the World Triathlon officials was on my email list, and he decided to throw that quote up on one of the slides in our pre-race briefing, and a lot of people loved it. And then Sunday morning, I woke up to my guide getting very sick. And then about 20 minutes after we had called our team doctor, we learned that the race had been postponed to Monday. And I thought to myself, I don't know if all those athletes are loving this quote from Kyle Kuhn that triathlon is all about adapting to every circumstance. I think they're not really happy with me right now. But we had to improvise and adapt to the situation. My guide, who I'd been working with every single day for 2 or 3 months, and who I had been training and racing with for 6 years, the medical team said, you cannot race. So I had to switch to my backup guy. And we had 24 hours to get in sync with each other. And we still went out there and executed a solid swim. Struggled a little bit in transition and on the bike. And then we went out there and had a phenomenal run. But it goes to show you that even at the highest level of our sport, at the Paralympic Games, we can only control the things that we can control. There's a lot of stuff in this world that we cannot control, whether that's in triathlon or whether it's in life. And that's why triathlon is so synonymous with life. You know, it's not who can swim, bike, or run the fastest. It's who can swim, bike, and run efficiently with having the most fun, having the biggest smile, who can adapt to any situation thrown their way. So tomorrow when you guys are out there, you know, thinking, getting ready for this race, some of you, you know, your palms may be sweaty, your heart may be pumping, you may feel a little anxious. That's not anxiety, guys, that's excitement. Be excited for tomorrow, because this is, for some of you, this is the start of an amazing journey. For others, this is an amazing continuation. For all of us here, you know, this is a historic weekend. We are doing something really cool and really special. You guys are the only ones out on that course racing tomorrow. And I am so proud to be here and part of that. And I hope that I've imparted some nuggets of wisdom to you over the last few days. I am so thrilled and excited to cheer on every single person tomorrow as you cross the finish line. I'm going to be the one hanging the medals around your necks, and to me, that's more fulfilling and gratifying than racing myself. And guys, I've raced everything from a super sprint triathlon to the Paralympic Games. I think I'm more excited about tomorrow than I have been about Tokyo or Paris. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for listening to me, and just thank you to USA Triathlon. Scott, you brought a family together, and this is just the beginning. Tomorrow you're gonna cross the finish line, but it's really just another start line. So let's go out there, let's do simple well, let's have some tough love, be honest with each other, remember to live, laugh, and love, be kind, respectful, and courteous to each other, and just really try hard, you guys. Really try hard, do the best you can with what you have. Thank you, guys.